Shalom. I'd like to start out by giving all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, or Chakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect of Israel. This is the Mayim in Atlanta, and I was listening to one of Elder Barak Allah's lessons out in Cali yesterday, and he mentioned something about the Greeks, and it got me thinking about how it's so crazy that the New Testament is written in Greek. Throughout it, you'll see Strong's G, which that G is representing the Greek language that it's being transferred from or translated from. But that the whole New Testament is written in the Greek, but the Apocrypha and the Greek Captivity is completely removed. And that causes people, especially Protestants, to not understand who the Greeks in the New Testament actually are, and to think that everyone has the possibility to be saved. And it's all because they don't read or understand the Apocrypha, because they say it's not canon and isn't actually the Word of God, or in in their words, because they say God, but it belongs there. And I would say you have no idea or understanding of the New Testament if you haven't read the Apocrypha. As Yahweh Shai says, he comes in the volume of the book. It is written of me. And so that's the Old Testament, the Apocrypha, and the New Testament. But getting into that, we're going to see where the Edomites being self-proclaimed white people, we're going to see where they started calling themselves Greeks. And so you start out here in 1 Maccabees, the first chapter, in the first verse. And it says, "And it happened, after that, Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece." That stead is going into stock or race. And of his stock, of his race, of his stead, he's the first to reign over Greece. And a little further up, it mentioned Macedonian, Philip the Macedonian. And in the Apocrypha as well, it links Philip to Haman the Agagite. And I hear Elder Malcolm say it all the time, that Alexander, this is the same Alexander that they called the Great, or the Greek. This same Alexander his lineage can be traced back through his father Philip all the way back to Agag. And so he is in fact an Edomite, calling himself a Grecian or a Greek, but they're Edomites. And it lets you know that in chapter 4 of 1 Maccabees. And it says, "And made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth." And he did that really well. He conquered the known world within, it's either 10 years or 13 years. I want to say 13. Don't quote me on that, but extremely quick. He's even referred to as the leopard in the book of Daniel. And it says, "And went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up." And so the earth was in a quiet state, but they're the wicked, and they put everything into disharmony. And I'm sure there were lots of cries as he went through. But anyway, this is showing where the Edomites first started to call themselves Greeks. But that doesn't mean that they're Greeks that are in the New Testament. And so we're going to get this word. Actually, we're going to go to the blue letter. Go to Acts 6 and 1. And it says, and in those days, when the number of the disciples were multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews. And these are not the same Grecians as Alexander the Greek. These are Israelites that lost their heritage and became Greeks. They took on the Greek heritage. So the apostles of that time called them Grecians because they were walking, talking, acting like Grecians, like Greeks. And so we're here at the word for Grecian, and it's Hellenistus. It's Strong's G 1675, Hellenistus. And it says, one who imitates the manners and customs or the worship of the Greeks and use the Greek tongue. And that's what these natural Israelites were doing. They had, when Alexander conquered and died, he left that region where Israel is to the Seleucids. And then I believe it was Antipater that came in and tried to force all of the Israelites and of the other regions that he was in. He tried to force them all to be of one manner, one tongue, one way, and that was the Greek way. It's the great Hellenization period that happened during that time of everyone becoming Greeks, even though they're not actual Greeks. And then right here it says, used in the New Testament of Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek. So they're not actually, they should have just put that word there, Hellenistas and Hellenist. But they said they put Greek there, and that has caused a lot of confusion. And just moving on, we're going to go back to the Old Testament because it speaks of the Greeks here in Joel 3. And where is it? Verse 6. Joel 3, verse 6. The children also of Judah, that's speaking to the southern kingdom, the so-called Negroes, and that includes Benjamin and Levi as well, and the children of Jerusalem, and that's the northern kingdom, the so-called Native Americans and Latinos. It says, have ye sold unto the Grecians? And so this is a different, even though it's the same word, this is a different set of people. This is going to the Edomite Grecians that Alexander brought in, that ye might remove them far from their border. And so that's so-called white people that enslaved so-called black people and the Native Americans and the Latinos, because the Northern Kingdom was actually the first to go into slavery when Christopher Columbus came over. They were the first to go, but the Southern Kingdom, they went and got later. And these are two different people, two different nations of people that it's referring to, all under both being called Greeks. In the New Testament, those Grecians, those are what the world would call black people or Negroes right now. And here in the Old Testament, it's speaking to them, and this is speaking of white people, or so-called white people, the Edomites, the Idumeans. But they messed up taking the Apocrypha out of the Bible, because it's just one of the many, many, many reasons that they cannot be saved. They've committed blasphemy, they've touched the apple of the Lord's eye, and they've added to the scriptures by adding themselves, adding pictures of themselves or their likeness. And then they've also removed. The Apocrypha is a great example of their removing. And so Revelation 22 and verse 18, for I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book, if any man shall add unto these things, the Most High shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. And those plagues, they're in Deuteronomy chapter 28, starting in verse 16, all the way down. This is all turning onto Esau. And you could see it with their low birth rates. You could see it with their opioid addictions. You could see it with the constant exposing of both the so-called white people, or white Christians, and those small hatters, because they're both Edomites. They're of different tribes, but they're both Edomites. They all go to Edom. There's small hatters and so-called white people. Wherever they are Edomites. And I also have to say, Israel has been scattered throughout the four corners. So we are going to have people, our own people, that resemble all of the other nations. So we are going to have brothers and sisters that have the appearance of Edomites, but through their father's bloodline go back to Israelites. They go back to Jacob and get those promises and blessings as well. But the actual Edomites, they have added on to the Lord's scriptures. And then moving on down to 19, it says, and if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy. So you could think of the Apocrypha. They remove the Apocrypha. Also removed understanding of the New Testament by doing that. It says, and if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, the Most High shall take away his part out of the book of life, and out of the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book. And so they are in trouble. They're catching these plagues shifting onto them, but they're going to shift onto them all the way, all of those plagues, and they're going to get double of what the Israelites got. It's going to be terrible for them. And so, Lord willing, that was edifying. I'd like to give all glory, praise, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, or Chakwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of the great millstone, and shalom to the elect of Israel. Shalom.